All right. Okay. Hello, everybody. This might be a bit of a chaotic presentation. There's a lot of people here, more than last time. Nice to see you all. All right. What are we doing today? So this is not a technical talk. I'm not going to go in depth on anything. And you've heard all of this before. So why am I going to say all these things? And the reason is there's a lot of discussion I hear all the time, especially among these groups where like we use CF, we like CF, we want to keep using it, and everybody's arguing and say, oh no, blah, 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 blah. There's so much noise in the world. And something people ask is, what do I say? Well, like, why are we doing this? I feel like this is a good platform and that it works well and I like the architecture, but like, how do I communicate this? So basically, I'm going to be preaching to the choir, and we're all going to be nodding together like, oh yeah, that's it, and like, you know, hyping each other up, and hopefully that's useful in some regard, and maybe there's some new information here and there. All right, so spoilers. So you know, like you're watching a TV series and you watch 20 minutes and then somebody dies, so this is somebody dies. So I'm just giving you the ending in the beginning. So what I'm going to convince you of is that the only scalable solution to security and compliance is architecturally defined homogeneity. What does that mean? It means we want a system that remains uniform as it scales. That's the whole thing. It sounds silly. It's pretty easy. There's no mystery to it. But you do this thing, your security just works. And I'm going to tell you why. I mean, it doesn't just work, but like it's possible to make it work as opposed to, you know, not. All right. So I'm product manager at Tanzu. Not here to sell you anything, but like if you want to buy it, sure. In my previous job, before I joined VMware, feels like forever ago, I worked at 2 different companies where the mission was, hey, let's fix the developer experience of Kubernetes. And you're going to decide in the next 20 minutes whether I succeeded at that or failed. Anyway, and that's an interesting point later. So fun fact, the reason I live in Germany is that one day I presented a talk the day before KubeCon, because nobody could get a talking spot at KubeCon back then. And I was just trash talking Kubernetes for half an hour. And for some reason, people love that, so we're going to do it again. Yes, so this is not a talk about Kubernetes, but by trash talking Kubernetes, we're going to get the point across that we want to get across. Because you know, it's like a crime TV show. You just use the format that people like. So in this case, it's trash talking Kubernetes. All right, so back to the basics. And I don't need to really explain this. I'm not going to read every point. But like, what's the difference between Kubernetes and Cloud Foundry is Kubernetes is like, let's do maximum flexibility. Oh, you want a different container? There you go. You want your application to run this very weird thing? Go for it. I want a different version of Java. I want a very artistic YAML. Or like, yeah, do it, man. Cloud Foundry, it's more like Germany. Like, you know. It's like you have the Ordnungsamt and it says, listen, here's where you cross the street. You don't cross the street there, you do it here. And I mean, we have very official institutions to enforce this, so, you know, it kind of works in a way. And that's the main difference in principle. Lots of points here. I'm not going to read through all of them, but basically the difference everywhere you look is, one, you enforce uniformity. There's a pattern, everything's going to follow that pattern. Other system, and this is not just Kubernetes, but lots of other things people come up with, it's like, oh yeah, I want this, I want that, I want that, I want the other thing, I want to configure this differently. Oh, my application is special, it's an exception, let's do it differently. Cloud Foundry is like, listen, here's how it works, figure it out. Oh, but my application doesn't work, I need a different, well, change the application. And that's kind of the approach. And if you need something done differently, you do differently wholesale. You change the pattern, you don't do exceptions, generally. So, another difference is, and this is a Tanzu marketing slide, like, don't worry about the details, I just wanted to illustrate that in Kubernetes is more like here, and Cloud Foundry is more like there, in the sense that, you know what, just take the entire stack and create a standard and make a pattern for the whole stack and do the same thing all the time. Don't just have like, a different solutions for each, don't have 100 solutions for each layer of the stack. Just choose one and make a standard and follow that. Okay, now the topic of this talk, supposedly, let's do a very brief introduction. Vulnerability management, how does it work? Wait, what the hell is that? Oh, there's like, well, shit, I didn't plan on that. Okay, let's pretend this is the thing, and let's hope nothing that shouldn't be on slide got recorded and it's gonna go on YouTube. Okay, so how does vulnerability management work? You have a bunch of developers, and they keep putting vulnerable shit in your, in your deployments. And then you have people who dress very strangely in the community, and they say, hey, there's a vulnerability here. And then you have security people in-house trying to hunt down those developers who put the stuff there and saying, hey, go update your shit because it's bad. And this keeps repeating. It's a cycle of life. You put new vulnerabilities are discovered, you tell people to patch it, and next day, same thing over and over again. So this is story number one, and I'm going to tell you how this goes wrong in a second. But let's talk about compliance just for a minute. So how does compliance work? If anybody's new and if you didn't work with compliance before, there's a bunch of standards. So for example, if you have a nuclear submarine in the US military, you're going to follow DoD, NIST, etc. If you're in the BKA, you can probably try to read this thing. My German's horrible. Anybody with a really thick German accent can read this, like, for real? Okay, that is a very reasonable accent. I meant like very, okay, never mind. Anyway, if you're a financial institution, you're going to do PCI, and if you have anything SaaS, people are going to want you to have SOC 2, so on and so forth, a bunch of different standards. When you look at any one of them, for example, in NIST 853, here's one of the assessment procedures. It says, hey, don't have reasonable passwords. And then, okay, how do I implement this? Then you move on to a technical implementation, the STIG, and then the STIG's going to say, oh yeah, the assessment procedure says have a decent password, and then the STIG is like, it needs to be 15 characters long. And the implementation is going to change for every different bit of software. So if you have a database, the STIG implementation requirements are different than if you have a web application, and so on and so forth. So that's how this is going to work. For example, if you when you want to do a full assessment of a system with NIST, that is about 2,100 controls that you have to look at, and you need to prove to your auditors that that's the case, and then they're going to be like, okay, put it in the summary. This is going to be different for every kind of compliance that you need to do. My point is, it's always a shit ton of work, and you have to prove that things are the way you're saying they are across the entire system. Nowadays we have, for example, continuous authority to operate. It's an American thing. It basically means, oh, you don't just pass a compliance audit once. You need to prove that you're doing it continuously the entire time, forever. So it's like, instead of audit season being a month every year, it's like, it's always audit season. So that's interesting. Oh yeah, and they all kind of say the same thing. All the compliance standards, just in different ways. So I just wanted to highlight, here we have CIS, PCI, NIST. They're all kind of the same stuff. All right, now let's have some fun. Again, this is like a 20 minutes talk, so I don't want to read the whole thing, but like, imagine the new log for Solar Spectre just came out. What do you do? How do you know if you're affected? Are you able to know if you're affected in whatever system you have? Do you have like all of your SBOMs right there? Can you just search it? Are you sure? Okay, you found that you are affected. Which applications are affected? Which teams owns each application? And then you start getting to the fun stuff like, well, my scanner popped something up, but where do I fix it? Is the CVE in the build pack, in the application code, in the stem cell? Who knows? Good question. And then again, each application might be using a different version of Java. How do you, do you have a way to figure that out? And so on and so forth. This is the moment where we start thinking about the Ordnungsamt again. How does this look different in a system that prioritizes flexibility and do whatever you want and have a bazillion different types of application and a bazillion different types of configuration versus, oh yeah, everything has to look the same because we said so. So, you know, there's 20,000 applications using this build pack. I know it's in the build pack. Or there's 20,000 applications, each one having fun. And so moving on from vulnerabilities, we have a similar story when it comes to compliance, a bit more nerdy and less like adventurous than, you know, there's a CVE emergency. This is usually what I tell customers who are, let's say, starting to go down the compliance road. I tell them, hey, this is everything that's going to go wrong. I'm going to tell you right now. You're not going to listen to me. You're going to do it wrong, and we're going to start again next year. Achieving compliance retroactively, extremely difficult. If you start building a system, you start deploying a system, and you know you're going to have compliance requirements, and you don't think about them beforehand, fixing those things after you have like an entire deployment of like hundreds of clusters or whatever, that's going to be very tricky. Having too many components, that's another problem, because if you have 30 integrations, you can check that they are compliant with whatever it is and they're using their FIPS encryption and blah, blah, blah. You can check, because it's a finite number. If you have a system that prioritizes flexibility, you have 1,000 integrations, you're not going to be able to check. Your auditors are going to check. They're going to find stuff that you didn't, and now you depend on this third-party provider that is not meeting the requirements. You have to, you know, rewire the whole thing because you have too many integrations. I'm not saying the problem is one partner, one third party. The problem is when you have more than you can reasonably manage. 1,000 paper cuts. Layers of the stack. How many layers of the stack do you have to think about for any challenge you encounter? For example, what's your container registry? Do you have 5 different types? Probably, maybe, depends. Do you have just the one? That's easier. And so on and so forth. Oh, logging. Where do you spit your logs out to? Is it one company? 2? 5? Are they all compliant with like PCI or NIST or whatever it is? Is it a finite number? Can you check individually? Same thing. And the last one is the most fun. It's like sometimes you talk to a team and they're like, no, we've done everything. We're really good. Trust me, we did all the homework. But you're saying this is all old stuff. And I'm like, okay, show me the money. Where's the evidence? And they're like, oh, right, I needed to collect evidence. No, but trust me, I've done it. And it's like, well, yeah, auditors are not going to trust you. You need to collect evidence. And like everything else, making a system spit out evidence after the fact, after it's all built, that's really hard. You want to think about it beforehand. So, we get back to the comparison. Everything I've been complaining about this whole time. How do you manage CVEs? You know, is your build pack vulnerable? What version of Java are your applications running? Are you exporting your logs in a way that is compliant with the standards, blah, blah, blah? How many integrations do you have? To me, the big discussion, and it's not even about Cloud Foundry and Kubernetes, it's about standardization versus flexibility. And I'm here to say, if you're prototyping, doing a bunch of crazy stuff, oh, this is a new, you know, combination of stuff nobody tried before, then yeah, go for flexibility. But if you're trying to run production systems at scale, big stuff, low cost, small teams, like very high ratio of maintenance to, let's say, application developers, you need to focus on homogeneity. You need to focus on systems that stay the same as they scale, as opposed to systems that get more and more and more and more complex, like linearly as it goes up. Because once it gets complex, you're screwed. You're not going back from that. You're just stuck with a lot of cost. Yeah, so I guess the slide is basically what I said with more words. Quick chat about Cloud Pass, because everybody always asks. And I guess the point of Cloud Pass is it works similarly. They most work similarly to Cloud Foundry in theory, but you don't own the system. So that's the problem. You're running it on somebody else's computer. You don't know how that's configured. For example, is a certain Cloud Pass provider using build packs? I don't know. Probably, because of how it behaves. It's something similar to build packs, but is it a build pack? I don't know. Oh, what if I need to change it? You can't. So to me, the problem with Cloud Pass is I feel like they're great, but you don't own them. So just a quick parentheses, my opinion on Cloud Pass. So solutions, and I'm going to talk about Tanzu a little bit, mostly to say this platform I'm advocating for, and this standardization and uniformity I'm advocating for, it enables you to do a bunch of really cool stuff. I'm not here to say, oh, buy my cool stuff. I'm here to say this cool stuff only exists because of the way this platform, this solution's architected, which we can't do with Kubernetes. So, for example, we have a CVE view. This is I'm like DMing the engineers and filing bug JIRAs and whatever all the time. This is almost done. What does this mean? Basically, every bit of software we ship to our customers as part of Tanzu platform, which is, in case you don't know, our Cloud Foundry plus dollars thing. So the way this works is every bit of software we ship as part of the platform, you have all the CVE information we have about it. You have it in a dashboard conveniently. So, oh, log4j, what was the name I came up with? Log4Solar Spectre? The new hot thing just came out. Am I affected? Yeah, just type the CVE number in the search bar. There you go. And then, for example, oh, what if in this component, this CVE is not affected because the code's not on the, the vulnerable code is in the zip, let's say, but the application's not running that bit of code. So that's not affected, and there's like a Cyclone DX standard that says here's how you file this justification. But okay, I'm gonna stop bothering it. But anyway, the CVE justifications are there, the severity is there. Oh, how do you patch it? Yeah, you just click a button, you go to Upgrade Planner. It's gonna tell you, okay, here's how you patch the whole thing. What's the latest version? What percentage of the current CVEs is the next version going to fix, etc. We're going to have it all here in a dashboard. Why can we do this? Because it's a uniform system. That's what I'm trying to say. Because we know all the build packs, we know all the stem cells, we know all the CF components, the task tile, whatever. It's a uniform system. We can do stuff like this. Imagine trying to do this in Kubernetes, and the fun part is we're not scanning stuff in a customer environment. It's not like people are deploying Tanzu platform and then we run a CVE scanner. No, this is our triage that we do at home. We know the components they're using because it's a uniform system. We don't have to scan in their environment. Of course, everybody's going to have their own applications they have to do the security for, but everything we ship, we give you the SBOM. Here's what it's made for. Here's all the CVEs in it. We know it. We're telling you. No need to wonder about it. Can you do this in a flexible system with 100,000 types of components? You can do automated scanning. You cannot get your engineers to triage individually 1,000 different components, because that's just too much work. But a platform of a limited scope that we control and that stays uniform as it scales, yeah, we can do it. That's chill. And now on the compliance side, same thing. I was just talking about the compliance standards, and NIST is like 2,000 questions, etc. So how do we deal with this? Well, there's me and 2 more people in the company, and we have a very particular set of skills, I guess, like the movie says. And our skill is just we really like to sit down in spreadsheets and answer compliance questions. So we just go through the 2,000 questions for our platform and write down the answers. And guess what? It's a uniform platform. Things are going to stay the same. I don't have to answer questions for 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 different components and possibilities and configurations and whatever. It's a uniform platform. We answer the questions once, we have the answers. Oh, next version next year, I have to answer everything again. No, it's going to stay similar. CF has worked similarly for a bazillion years now, and it's going to still work similarly in the future. You do the work once, you're done. So that's my point. And oh, right. Wow, fascinating. Anyway, I'm not here to sell you on Tanzu. These are basically the principles. Like, how do you think about this stuff? How do you do this stuff? How do you make sure you hit the ground running when you get started? But again, you had the spoilers in the beginning. Flexibility versus uniformity, where do we stand? And I think if I'm going to invest in a platform, I want to invest in uniformity and making that uniformity more powerful. But I don't want to keep doing exceptions the way other platforms like Kubernetes like to do. Yeah, so just restating here, think about this again, all these questions in light of everything we discussed. So, am I affected? Yeah, just type in the number or just scan your SBOMs. You know what your platform's made of. How do I fix this? Same question. Which application's affected? In a uniform system, these are answers that you can find out. In an extremely hyper-flexible system, you cannot. So yeah, is Cloud Foundry still a contender for security and compliance? And before I wrap up this talk, I want to tell you about my previous job. I worked at Tilt.dev and another company before that. This is the developer experience company. And this company started because developing software for Kubernetes is really hard. Everybody was, writing Ruby and just, you just write your code and magic and it's running and you go back and forth and you don't have to waste time building a bunch of containers and whatever. You just IDE and then see if it works. Code in your IDE and see if it works. And we wanted to do that with Kubernetes. It took a little bit of work. We had some cool results. But doing that basically, and you can see it in the file here, it basically meant that we reinvented CF push after CF push had been already invented, because that was the first thing. It's like, well, every application you want to run in Kubernetes, you need to build it differently and run it differently and use a different config and base image and whatever. So in an effort to try and make Kubernetes palatable to developers, we basically reinvented CF because we didn't know CF. So I guess to answer the question, is Cloud Foundry a contender for security and compliance? I mean, if you want to reinvent CF, if you're free to use Kubernetes, that's what you're going to have to do if you want scalable security and compliance. But we have CF already. We don't have to reinvent it. So that's the talk. Thank you.